First of all, can you just talk about yourself?
I am a third year historian at Cambridge. So it's my third and my final year. And obviously, I'm from the United Kingdom, and I've always lived near Cambridge, but this is my first time actually living here. And I've done a variety of different historical periods, and it's been very interesting. I've really enjoyed it.
My name's William Phelps. I'm a third year theology student at Corpus Christi College, University of Cambridge. I focus mainly on philosophy of religion, and I'm in the process of sitting my final exams at the moment. And in terms of what I'm doing after university, very much up in the air at the moment, depending on how coronavirus plays out. But for the time being, I'm concentrating on my studies. So we'll see where we go from there.
I'm Eva Grotrex. I'm a first year geography student at Cambridge University, specifically Magdalen College, which is one of the colleges inside the university. Yeah, that's it. I live in the UK. Not that interesting apart from that. Yeah, so.
The question is a little bit strange, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the countries, especially in Central Asian countries, it's like Cambridge. Wow, what? It's unreal. You have to have 2 brains at least to pass here. It's understood like this. So the first question is about that. Is it real to pass here, to be a student?
To be a student at Cambridge, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. So I thought that everyone at Cambridge was really brainy and a bit weird, really. I didn't really know much about Cambridge at all. I didn't actually want to go to Cambridge for most of my life until I went there and I visited the city. I fell in love with the city. It's beautiful. I just knew I wanted to study there. So I thought, wow, how am I going to get into Cambridge? I'm not clever enough. I think most people, think that way. But it's more intimidating than it actually is in real life. The people there are really normal, really welcoming, really lovely. And the academic side, it's challenging, but it's not impossible. They challenge you. They don't try and pick on you or bring you down or in any way. It's more trying to open up learning to you. Challenge you as much as you can to your ability.
I mean, it is real. Yes, it is a very lovely city. It's a very beautiful city. If you Google it, buildings are very nice. It is a very lovely city. And especially at the moment in summer, it's very good weather. It's very lovely from that perspective. Obviously, it is quite a hard university to get into, but it is possible for anyone who kind of works hard and really enjoys their subject to get into. And I wouldn't say to be put off by it simply because you think you've got to be really clever. I know a lot of people who are at Cambridge said, "Oh, I never thought I'd get in. I never thought I was clever enough." But if you work hard and like your subjects, then there's no reason why you can't come.
I think so. I mean, I think in terms of Oxford and Cambridge, and particularly Cambridge, there's a lot of talk around the actual student experience that sort of makes it out to be less than it is, by which I mean this idea that it's effectively a normal student experience, but I'd say it really isn't, and I don't mean that negatively at all. I think Cambridge is a very special place to study, both in terms of the actual student experience and day-to-day student life, but also the way the academics are structured. I think you get an academic and social and indeed student experience more holistically that you wouldn't get anywhere else.
Passing here is so hard. Can you just tell about the exam process? I mean, for example, it would be better if you just say for international students what the requirements like IELTS or ESOL examinations. Can you tell me step by step? I mean, the exam process.
So this is for undergraduates. To get in, first of all, you submit an application. I believe it's through the UCAS portal, although that is definitely for domestic students. I'm not sure for international students, but I think it's the same. And when you do that, you submit basically your exam grades from school or basically whatever past qualifications.
GPA, you mean, right? GPA?
So it'd be your GPA. So in the UK, we don't have the GPA, but it'll be basically your GPA score.
What is the minimum?
So I don't actually know that because of the fact that the UK doesn't have the GPA. So I don't have a GPA score. We have something called A levels, which is graded on a letter based. So that's how we were judged. But you'll submit your grades that you got at school. You'll then also submit a personal statement, which is a essay of basically set characters about why you're interested in studying your subjects. And those two things apply if you apply to any UK university. You have to submit your grades and your personal statements.
For STEM subjects, so science, engineering, and mathematics, Cambridge often requires you to have specialised entrance exams. With maths, for example, it's the STEP. I know with some of the natural science and engineering, it's something similar but different. But speaking generally for the humanities as well, you do need a very solid set of grades, normally at approaching the highest level. And it's also worth remembering as well that for all subjects, Cambridge do require their own internal assessment exam paper, whether that be for law, English, history, or indeed the ones I mentioned with regards to the sort of maths and science related subjects. But generally, good exam grades is what I would say.
For my subject, I had to do a geography exam. So they give you questions and you write essay answers. I had to do interviews as well. I had to provide some work that I had done over the years. I think that's it. Yeah. They test you on
which is the main part. Which is the main
part.
Yeah.
They take it all into account. So it's nothing's make or break, as we say in the UK. It's a combination of loads of the exam, of your interview, of the work that you've submitted. They take it all into account, and they look at you as a person and not just one exam or one interview, which is
unique to Cambridge. You have a secondary application form where you can write more about why you want to apply particularly to Cambridge. And then you also have a competency test. Those tests vary depending on what subject you're doing. But basically, it's to test your analytical skills. You're not expected to necessarily revise for them, but you should probably practice the skills that they will be testing. And then if you pass the tests and you've got high enough grades beforehand, you then get put forward to the interview. The interview is really the main thing, which they'll be deciding your place on. And basically, I believe you can do it over Zoom or over online, but most of the time people will go to Cambridge. Colleges can provide you accommodation if you're traveling from a far distance away. Obviously, you would be if you're coming from Uzbekistan. And then when you're there, you'll have a series of interviews for your subjects with the fellows who are basically the teachers at the university, who would later teach you if you got in, and they'll be asking you questions about the subjects, about your motivation to study the subjects, and it's really to make sure that you're committed to your subject, but also committed to the academic rigor that Cambridge requires of you.
Thank you. What about the fees, and are there scholarships that can cover?
Yeah, so the fees for international students are slightly higher than for domestic students. I don't know the conversion rate into your local currency, but
Say in pounds. How much is it?
It's £27,000 a year, which, although is more expensive than I'm paying, if you compare it to international fees at other world leading universities, it's actually quite good. So if you compare it to like Harvard or Yale, it is a bit cheaper. And I believe there are also scholarships available, especially if you're coming from an international background. It also kind of help with that funding.
Oh, tuition fees. In the UK, we have a student loan program. So the government can give you a loan that covers your full tuition fees if you need it covered, and it gives you a loan which also covers your living costs, like your food and your accommodation and just living. But that's in the UK, and I don't know about how Uzbekistan would fund that, or non-national students.
No. I mean, are there any scholarships that's available?
Oh, yeah. So there's scholarships. The colleges have different scholarships you can apply for, and it depends on your situation and your nationality. People have set up different scholarships. So I'm sure there are definitely scholarships, but I can't give you specific names. But if you look up on each college's website, they have details about grants and scholarships. So a grant is just money they would just give you, and the scholarship they fund you because of your ability in whatever field that they decide. Yeah, so it depends on the college, really.
I'm aware at undergraduate level there aren't any Cambridge scholarships which are offered by the university or the college, as far as I'm aware. I might be wrong, but I think they do exist private scholarships. So, for example, the Gates Foundation at postgrad level offer a lot of funding, but I don't know whether they could be equivalent at an undergraduate level. But one of the differences between Oxford and Cambridge, for example, is that whereas Oxford have a lot of scholarships, and scholarships are a big part of their undergraduate experience, Cambridge doesn't, at least not when applying.
So my belief is that there are two kinds of scholarships. There are scholarships provided by the university themselves, and they are on the university website, and they could vary depending on what country you come from and what subject you're applying for. So I'd advise you to look at the university website. There's not loads of scholarships. There's not as many scholarships as you might find in some like US universities, but there are still quite a few. And on top of that, you also have scholarships which can kind of come from your country itself. So I know that some countries, if one of their citizens gets an offer to study at Cambridge, will help fund that offer. Obviously, I don't know the exact case with your country, but it's probably worth looking at what your government says.
It's a little bit strange question, but is it worth it? I mean, to study?
So obviously, it obviously does depend on your kind of what you want to do with your life, what you want to what you want to use your degree for. I would say that if you just want to come to the UK and study at a UK university, it's probably not worth it, because you'll be doing so much work towards your particular subject that you won't have enough time to kind of like have as much fun time as you could if you went to a different university in the UK. However, if you really like your subjects and want to work with people from across the world who are kind of world leaders in your subjects, but also you want to meet a variety of people from across the world who are students like you and who will go on to do quite amazing things, then it's definitely worth it. So I obviously believe it's worth it because I've met A, friends for life, B, I've met a great degree of different people from a variety of countries, from a variety of subjects. It's been very eye-opening.
And then, well, Cambridge, I think fundamentally what Cambridge gives you is, in an academic sense, it offers you an unparalleled student and academic experience, whereby you have incredibly high number of contact hours, one-to-one with some of the foremost academics in the world. Your study is prioritized, and in terms of the resources and the experience, you're given the absolute best opportunities to pursue whatever angles of study or academic inquiry you're able to, and you combine that with, which I'm sure we'll discuss later, student experience, makes it unparalleled, I think.
Student life now, at the moment, how is it going? I mean,
So obviously it's been quite badly affected by COVID-19 of the virus. So at the moment, the term has been cancelled. So everyone's learning from home or in line.
I think everyone has now got that exams online. There were a few that were planning to go back in to take their exams, but that's now changed, and I think everyone's now online. For my subject specifically, I have 2 different exams, but we're allowed to type them up. It's online. There's less time pressure, if at all. It's open book, so it's much more relaxed. They're trying to make it less stressful because of the pandemic. And they're just making sure we know our subject knowledge and just testing us. And there's no class system this year for anybody, my subject, which means we're not going to get an official grade on our university transcript, but we will get feedback from our exams. It just won't count towards the end of our degree.
UK at the moment is not good. It's not good. I mean, most people are healthy and safe, but we are in lockdown, in quarantine at the moment. And in terms of in terms of Cambridge next year, at least for the first term, all lectures are due to be online, for better or for worse. But yes, it's an interesting situation. Absolutely.
As I'm sure you're aware, recently the UK has had some political, not unrest, but like political division based over our membership of the European Union.
Brexit, right?
Brexit, yeah, precisely. The UK will deal with it. I think at the end of the day, we are quite a wealthy country with quite a decent health service, and eventually we'll find a vaccine for the pandemic, and we'll deal with it. I think some problems the UK has faced, this is my personal opinion, is that we started locking things down quite late. We were quite late to that, and some of the lockdown guidelines haven't been followed as much as they should have been, because I think the government is quite weak in asserting its authority. It's quite lax, and people don't really follow government instruction. But I think that the UK is dealing with it. It will deal with it, and we will come out the other side of it. I don't think it'll be a long-term problem, but obviously at the moment it is concerning.
In the UK, restrictions have just been eased a bit, so we're allowed to see 6 people now. But before that, we've all been confined to our houses, which has been really difficult, but it's obviously necessary to stop the spread of this virus. So yeah, we've all been sent home from university, and we haven't been back this term, the summer term, or the Easter term as we call it in Cambridge. But we don't know if we'll go back physically next term or not yet. It's too soon to say.
So in terms of the day-to-day life, it is quite remarkable. I mean, it's often referred to as a bubble in Cambridge, in the sense that it's completely divorced really from the rest of the country, if not the world, because it's very much.
So lectures and supervisions. So we have lectures, which is basically, as you know, obviously kind of large group teaching, and you have supervisions, which is small group teaching. So it's like one teacher to maybe 3.
We've got also like this.
Great. But they're all still going ahead. They're just going ahead online. So the teaching is virtually the same. Obviously, because of the fact not everyone's in Cambridge and there are rules about who you can meet up with, kind of the social life is very different. It's much more restricted. But at the same time, it is at normal time, it's a very friendly university. You're obviously decided into colleges. So you each go to a different college when you apply. And you have quite a tight network within that college generally. But then also you've got the opportunity to build out and meet people at other colleges, either through sports, if you enjoy doing sports, or through other activities like societies. For example, if you really enjoy learning more about a particular region or country, or you really enjoy a particular kind of board game or hobby, then you can go and meet up with other people who also do that. So the advantage of the college system is that it does give you that base of other people in your college, but then you can also build out from that college and meet other people.
Thank you for your part. Actually, are there any, how to say, compulsory subjects, or you choose your subjects by yourself?
So it varies from what subject you choose to study.
So it's different for each subject, but typically as you go into the next year and the year after, you have more choice in what you study. For geography in the first year, we have to study everything in that year. We don't get a choice. We have to study both physical and human geography, but next year we get to choose more. We have, I think, one compulsory module next year, but otherwise we get to choose. So yeah, it just depends on each subject. I know Natski's, which is the sciences, they choose their modules in first year. So it just depends.
On the degree you're doing. So in American universities, obviously you have to, I think in the first year, do English and maths and sort of a wide range of subjects, some of which are compulsory. In Cambridge, it's very, very different, because obviously you apply for one subject and you study that one subject. Within each of the subjects, there might be compulsory modules or subjects and things like that, but there's no one thing that everyone has to study.
So for example, medicine. So if you want to be a doctor, there's lots of compulsory subjects in that, because you're working towards kind of having to be a doctor. You have to know certain things. And likewise, if you want to be a lawyer and you study law, you have to do certain topics in order to kind of become qualified from that, because the UK has certain modules you have to study. So there is still some choice. There's less choice in those kind of subjects whereby you have to qualify for something. If you're doing something like history or geography or like philosophy, there is a bit more choice. So I had no compulsory modules. They told me that I had to study something outside of Britain. I had to study something prior to the year 1750. And that's basically make sure you get a good range of kind of, you'll study different historical topics. That wasn't too hard for me, as I wanted to do that anyway. But other than that, there was no restrictions on what I could do, so I could literally study anything. So I would say it depends on your subjects, but generally, yes, there is a lot of choice.
So about research, can we talk about research a bit?
So you mean research my subjects?
Yeah. I mean, is it, for example, actually, it is one of the drawbacks of the national education system in our country. Is it easy to capitalize the research? For example, let's say a student wants to create a vaccine, but he or she has to find a capital for this. And is it easy to do this in Cambridge University?
So at the undergraduate level, so if it's your first time at university, you are somewhat constricted on what you can do, generally because as well, students don't have the experience to make something like a vaccine if they're only an undergrad. If you go to postgraduate level and look at doing a postgraduate degree, so you have been to university before, there is lots of funding available, there's lots of opportunities available. And that is one of the advantages of Cambridge, is that they are a world leader in this research, and they've got lots of money available if you want to do the research, and they've got lots of resources available. It's a very well-funded, well-resourced university for doing research. It's one of the world leaders. So if you have an idea, like you want to find a vaccine, and you're doing this at a postgraduate level, there is lots of opportunity, there's lots of assistance, there's lots of help. So it should work very well, and it is something which Cambridge just pride itself on.
Yes, so in terms of research, I think research is mainly a question for postgraduate students at master's or PhD level. But in Britain, both from the government and from a variety of private organisations, as well as the university, there are lots of opportunities for funding. And funding depends on two things. It depends on, well, three things. Firstly, the grades that you got at undergrad, as in the better you do and the higher grade you have, the more likely you are to be awarded funding. Secondly, what you're researching is important. So, for example, some funding is focused on certain areas that you have to be looking at to qualify. And thirdly, it's also about the time you apply as well. So the earlier you get your application in, generally the more likely you are to receive funding. But I think Britain and Cambridge in particular is one of the best places to research, purely because there is a lot of money, there's a lot of resources, and everything is there for you really to do research.
Right. I mean, you mean that at that time, now undergraduate level, anyway, it's hard, right? Or not?
I think at undergraduate level, if you had something that you wanted to do further research on, it does depend on what further research you wanted to do. As a historian, for example, if I wanted to go away and research a particular topic, that is fine. Like, that could happen. It's if you start requiring large financial support, then it can become a bit restrictive. At undergraduate, only undergraduates, simply because as an undergraduate, you're not that experienced in your particular subject, and the university doesn't actually think you have the time or the experience to actually produce something. Obviously, if you came to them and said, I can produce a vaccine, I know how to produce vaccines, this is how you do it, give me the money, they might then consider it.
So the research mostly happens in your 3-year degree. You go on to do further study in a master's or a PhD, and that's where you do the research. And you apply to the university for your PhD with your idea or thesis or theory of the research, and they say yes or no, give you the money, the grant.
Actually, per day. I mean traditional lesson. Traditional time. How many hours is spent to study? I mean, by professors. For example, International University of Law that I am studying, that was at least 2 peers. I mean, it means 2 peers, 4 hours compulsory. That was taught by, as you mentioned, it like lecture and the seminar. We call it seminar. That is separate ones in the groups.
Okay. So using the example of law for this, generally 5 days a week, so Monday to Friday, you'll have lectures, and those lectures will be generally about 9 o'clock in the morning till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So about 4 hours of lectures.
Equal, right? It's equal. In our also like this. So
on top of that, you will also have about 4 seminars a week, so 4 1-hour supervisions. 4 1-hour supervisions, and then you'll also be expected to do reading for those supervisions and work and essays before those supervisions. So you will be work quite hard. Yes.
Is there a possibility to work at the same time by studying?
Cambridge says quite explicitly that you should not be working alongside studying, and the main reason for this is because the Cambridge year and the course is very, very intense. So you're supposed to be spending most of your time studying and working on academic affairs, meaning that actually working outside of your degree is not viable. So the answer to that, at least I would say, is no. If money is a concern, Cambridge and the colleges in particular are very good. They offer all sorts of funding arrangements and bursaries and that sort of thing. So you are taken care of to the point that work shouldn't be a problem.
So it is possible to work and study at the same time. It is, however, not recommended at all because the high level of requirements that you're required to commit to your work. They suggest that you don't get a job in term time. Out of term time, yes, lots of people will stay in Cambridge and work at jobs.
It is about the person who is a little bit disabled. I mean, is there a condition for them to study?
Yes.
For handicapped people?
Oh, absolutely, yes, absolutely. The university is very, very keen to make sure that people don't get discriminated against because they are disabled. Obviously, there's different kinds of disabilities. There's kind of physical and there's kind of more mental side of things. if you're kind of physically disabled, the university will make sure that you're able to access as many areas as possible, that your accommodation will suit your disability. You've got a ground floor room if you can't walk, for example. If you need help like with writing or with numbers, the university can provide that support. For example, if you're slow at writing, they will provide you with extra time in exams in order to kind of make sure that you're not discriminated against. So if you are disabled, I would say that it's absolutely no barrier. So I myself I'm a bit slow at writing, and my spelling of English isn't too good because I've got dyslexia. And the university has provided me with extra time in exams. They provided me with help with my spelling and grammar. They provided me even with a laptop, so that I can use a laptop to help type things out. Because obviously a laptop's easier to write in than pencil and paper.
It was really fruitful. I did research about Cambridge, but it's another thing that if you do live talk with the real students who's saying real things. Thank you for that.
If you have any more questions, feel free to message me.
What could you recommend for the people who dream about Cambridge, passing Cambridge? What do they have to pay attention, or what do they have to do? What is the recommendation of you for them?
First of all, make sure that you're going there for the reason because you love your subject and you want to learn more about your subject. And if you have passion for your subject, show that, research your subject, look into it, look it up in the news and see what's relevant now, and look up, potentially academic articles online or just anything, always be interested and curious and just looking up things. If you're interested in Cambridge specifically, look at their course and make sure that the course structure and the way that we learn here suits you, because it doesn't suit everybody. But ultimately, if you've decided you want to come to Cambridge and that's your goal, then just study really hard, love your subject. There's always people at Cambridge and the admissions office that will answer any of your questions if you have any, and they're there to support you and help you out. So take advantage of them.
Is that you don't know whether you're going to get in or not until you apply. And I think that even if you're not sure you're good enough, the chances are you probably are good enough and you're just underestimating yourself. And you should put an application, give it a go, and try and get in at the very least. So I really encourage kind of anyone from Uzbekistan who's interested in applying to go for it and give it a go, because I think that there aren't many Uzbek people, if that's how you say it, in Cambridge at the moment, and it'd be great to kind of get those numbers up, get more people applying, because I think it's a fascinating country, it's in a fascinating part of the world, but it's sorely underrepresented at Cambridge. So I think you're doing a great job in kind of encouraging people to apply, and obviously it is a great experience, and it's something that I'd really like to open up to kind of more people.
Cambridge-га келиңиз сизни кут yapamiz.
Wow, just